Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio. Welcome to another episode of Sensational Sunday. Yes, it is a beautiful day, and certainly we are thankful that we are able to breathe and live and be alive. And today I am here in studio with a special guest, and we're going to be touching on a topic that impacts every single individual. Have you ever been wondering how can I stretch the dollars to make it last, to fulfill all the different expenses? I'm not talking about the trip to Dubai
Dubai,
or
okay.
to Switzerland or I'm not talking about the vacation, but to handle the daily expenses of life. And lately, to be honest, Linval, lately it seems harder and harder to stretch the dollar. But certainly you have come with almost a remedy or something to help us. It's called Paychecks to Prosperity. Welcome to Sensational Sundays.
Thank you for having me.
No, that was a mouthful of an introduction, and that's only just giving the listeners just a little glimpse of who you are. So I'm going to allow you to share with us your financial background and what qualifies you to speak and to write a book about prosperity, which what all of us, as Christians, we say, the Bible say, we wish above all things that you prosper and be in good health. So we
Absolutely.
want to hear about prosperity.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. Now, I am a banker by profession. That's the only profession I've ever worked in. And over the years, I have been a credit manager, head of loans, and what have you. And all this time, I've seen the full range of financial challenges, financial victories, and everything finance, right?
Yes.
But naturally, the natural thing is to focus on where the challenges are.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the years, I was collecting quotes on financial quotes. And then in later years, when I saw the financial, it seemed like, as you said, it's getting harder and harder to stretch your dollar, right?
Yes.
And I started to think about this. In fact, I'd say I got obsessed about it. Why is it that persons who earn good income are struggling with their finances?
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes you to something else because it means that your income is perhaps not the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been researching this. And what I found is that there are a number of things that are happening that is causing it. And so one observation that I came up with was that persons, nobody's good or bad with money. But what I found is that you're either trained or untrained.
Mm-hmm.
And until you're trained, chances are you're going to be struggling with your finances.
And you have touched on a point that I have frequently deliberated on, and that relates to our financial knowledge, right? You go to college, you get your profession, and visit you suggesting that you have a credit card. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost of a mentality. If you go to the States, perhaps they need a credit history in order for you to progress in life. So you need to borrow something in order. So already we have been trained to think that we ought to have this situation. So it's quite interesting that you realize that as individuals. So I think the fact is perhaps we don't have the knowledge that we need to manage our finances. So I'm happy that as a banker, you would have take this, idea of helping others.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you have seen persons along various spectrums. So those who are proclaiming financial victory and those who are struggling. Just give us a glimpse of what the balance is. Do you find more persons who are, rejoicing and say, "Oh, I have all that I need. I've managed my finances well," or do you find that those persons who are struggling tend to be in the greater percentage?
Well, I could even give you some statistics on that. So, Wealth Magazine in September last year came up with a statistic that says persons earning between 50,000, this is in the US, 50,000 to $100,000 are living paycheck to paycheck. It then goes on to say persons earning 101,000 to 250,000, 49% of those individuals are also living paycheck to paycheck, right? So you see those statistics, it tells you that it's not the amount that you earn. There is something else that we're missing, right? And at the same time, so what it means is that between 50 and 100,000, that is 70% of individuals. So most persons are struggling.
Yes.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there was a story of a lady who worked as a secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And over her lifetime, she was able to accumulate $9 million in investments on a $30,000 a month per year salary, right? Which shows you that there's something that we're missing, and there are other things that you could actually do to help you to actually elevate yourself along the financial journey.
And what do you think is the number one thing that we ought to do?
The number one thing I find is that we have no financial cushion, right? There's no safety net. And so once something extraordinary, in fact, I don't even know if it's extraordinary. If you wake up tomorrow and your tire's flat, or you wake up and your battery dies, or you get home and your refrigerator dies on you, those things I find are causing major challenges for persons. In fact, there are also some more stats on that, which says more than 80% of persons would struggle to cover an expense of $1,000 US in the normal daily lives. So these things are what's happening. So what I find is that if you have some kind of cushion between yourself and disaster, that will help you to stay above water. Because what typically happens is that once you have an emergency, the number one option is to borrow. And then once you start borrowing and then something else happens, and so your car breaks down, you go to, and then you have a medical emergency, you borrow again. So it takes you on a spiral. And the further you go, then the harder it is for you to get out of that. And so it is having no safety net, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that we're having.
And I like the phrase safety net. And I like it because when I think about the analogy of falling from a height
Yes.
and hitting the ground crashing, that net could mean the difference between life and death.
Yes.
And, I've had a discussion recently speaking about the impact of finances on your life. And we're not talking about just about acquiring the things that you need to survive, but we're talking about your social life, your personal life, your relationships, and how you manage even mentally, and the challenges. And so it's important that we take care of our financial health.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean, as you started the conversation and you even brought some statistics, it's not the amount of money that you make. Now, mind you, cost of living has gotten really high. I don't know if you're experiencing it, over here in Grand Cayman. It's harder and harder every day. Now, with all the resources, and of course, I will share with the listeners that, of course, the author of the book, Paychecks to Prosperity, is right here in studio with us, Mr. Linval O. Johnson. And, we are talking about it's tough stuff, the tough stuff. So, considering that there are not any increases in the salary, yes, and expenses have gotten high, how do we navigate?
Well, actually, I think this all starts with financial planning and financial clarity.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is that average person,
Right.
I earn X dollars, or let us say 5,000. That's probably too. Let us say it's $3,000 per month, right?
Yes.
Let's try and get to an average number that most persons can relate to. Let us say you earn $3,000 per month. You're gonna pay your rent, your utilities, maybe your auto loan, whatever, credit
Yes.
cards.
Yes.
And then whatever is left, you just spend it. You may, if you are into that, you'll go to happy hour, or you will pay your Netflix subscription, or you travel for the weekend.
Yes.
And you just do these things at random, right? And there is no real plan as to how you're going to mind your finances. And so when you live like that, it comes back to the safeness and pushing again. So when your car insurance is due, it's a stress on you, right? When your kids have to go back to school in September, it's a stress on you. And all these things just keep building and building and building. So it creates a stress. Now, if you're able to come up with a realistic spending plan, that is where the journey starts. So the spending plan will give you some clarity. Typically, we normally say budgets. So let me just say that. Come up with a budget. But don't just come up with a budget. Come up with a spending plan that makes sense for you. That's the place. And that spending plan should give you some clarity. And that clarity will help you to decide what you're going to do with your money and how you're going to allocate your funds.
So tell me, how do I navigate the idea that I only live once, right? And certainly, as much as we need to manage how we spend our hard earned cash, but I have to live today. I mean, I want to watch a movie, right? Next week, and we know, based on what has happened in the last few years and how unpredictable life is, you just have to seize every moment. How do we sort of balance the idea of living well and still being smart with our finances? How do we navigate that narrative?
Okay, so I've touched on a very interesting point. You said you only live once. Now, where that comes from is what we call your financial philosophy. Right?
Yes.
And therefore, what you just brought to me is a financial philosophy of a YOLOist, right? You only live once.
Okay.
And YOLOist is gonna live for today.
Right.
Living for today means that you enjoy the short term, and then so you're gonna enjoy today and have pain tomorrow. That's really what it means, right?
Yes.
Now, the YOLOist will say, yes, you can die tomorrow.
Yes.
But the probability, life expectancy has gone up, right?
Yes.
In fact, the retirement age has also gone up. And what you're finding is that people are living longer. So while you may die, which is real, you may also live until you're 90, right?
And that should be good. That should not be something that you're worried about.
Right.
What if I live long?
Right.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're a YOLOist and you live until you're 90,
Yes.
are you saying that you're going to be going to work with your oxygen tank and your water? Right? You don't want to do that.
Yes,
So you want to make some provision for what's going to happen in the future. So actually, the interesting thing is that I'm a YOLOist at heart, right? So I know exactly what you're talking about. But you have to learn. You can't just do what you want to do. You have to do what you should do. And you have to learn to balance your life so you can enjoy now and also enjoy the future should you live long enough for the future. And even so, if you are a family man or a family woman, then you also need to start thinking about your kids. And don't you want to leave some kind of legacy, financial legacy for your kids as well? So there has to be some planning, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And so I really appreciate the fact that you have, as a young man, not only embarked on the journey which has kind of most of your career, but certainly you're paying it forward by, putting these things together in a book. Um, but what if you find yourself in debt, in a bad situation?
Okay. Now, debt is one of the financial challenges that we see quite often. And what you're finding is that the general, in fact, across the, well, in this zone, in North American zone, Canada, USA, UK, and so on, Western Hemisphere, as we probably call it, borrowing has been made very easy, right? Once you have an income, there's a 90% chance you'll be able to get a loan, right? And because it's so easy, I want to go on vacation, I'm going to borrow some money. My car needs to be repaired, I'm going to go borrow some money. And what happens is that the more you borrow, it takes you away from your ability to invest and so on. But ultimately, what you want to do, you need to understand where you're going, what you're trying to accomplish, and how you're going to navigate it. So the debt trap is usually come from the fact that there's no security net again, right? So once you get into that debt trap, there is something that you can do, and you can consider debt consolidation and so on. In fact, let me tell you a story. A couple years ago, about 2013, a file came to my desk. This is a single mother, 4 kids. She earned $3,500 at the time, which would have been decent. That was 10 years ago. But she was in debt up to her neck, and so she earned $3,500, and her loan payments across 4 banks came up to $2,900.
Whoa!
Now you don't need a calculator to know that there's an issue there, right? Because what's happening? So after she has paid her loans, she hasn't paid her rent yet, right? She hasn't sent her 4 kids to school yet. She hasn't bought groceries yet. She hasn't put gas in the car yet. So there's a problem, right? And so she's heavily indebted. And what has happened is that she started hiding from the banks naturally. So when I would see her, if I see her in the supermarket, she would dodge to the next aisle easy, right? And so the file came to my desk, and I looked at it. Well, so when it gets bad, the file comes to my desk, right? So that's it got to my desk. I said, okay, let's meet with her and just hear what her story is. And because she had an emergency fund again, it always comes back to that. She had to keep borrowing, and then she started borrowing payday loans. And then once she hit the payday loans, she just couldn't get out of that cycle. So that's where she was. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to consolidate your debts. But not only are we going to consolidate your debts, we're also going to enforce a savings on you. But not just enforce it in a way that is draconian.
Right.
Because what we're able to do, we're able to move her loan payment from $2,900 to $900, right? And give her a savings plan of $250 from her. But what that did, it transformed her lifestyle, because she now could live with dignity. She no longer needed it. In fact, when I see her now, I have a guaranteed hug, right? Because we actually solved a genuine problem. In fact, her story has progressed very well, because she recently closed her own home. And that's the very same savings that she had accumulated over time, and she was able to accumulate down payment on the home. So there are ways that you can actually get out of these things, but you also have to be willing to make the sacrifices and go through the process, right? And find a bank that's willing to do it.
I like the fact that you brought that story, because, it's one thing to sit in a position and speak and know all the theoretical stuff, and having been in the banking industry so much, you are able to balance the books and tell us about income, expenditure, cushions, and so forth. But then you would have explained that you have met a client who had a up to her neck,
Yes.
and sometimes it's over her neck,
Yeah.
and we can't even breathe.
She was underwater, you'd say.
Underwater and not finding any way out of a situation. So the key point and the takeaway from the conversation that I've been having with you so far, I know at the beginning of the year, a lot of persons make resolutions and they make plans. And even though the heart is willing, then it becomes difficult to put these things into action. And so we find ourselves sometimes sliding, just reverting back to the situation. But, the important thing to note, as you mentioned, if you haven't started, if you still find yourself in a situation that you have to come up for air, there's still hope.
There's still hope. Yeah.
There's still hope. And there's still a chance for you to get this cushion that you need. It starts by doing some serious, make some serious changes in your life. So talk to us more about what we hope to find in this book, Paychecks to Prosperity, and why do the majority of us live from paychecks and we hope for prosperity. But now you are giving us more than just the just glimmer of hope. You are saying that there is a structured way that you can arrive at this prosperity destination. Just give us a little glimpse of what that would look like.
All right. So a part of the inspiration from this book was practical solutions to real problems because we can't ignore it. The cost of living is high. But persons living in Cayman, we have one big thing that we pretend isn't there. Another country, and we don't pay taxes here, right? So you're getting all of your income, but everybody ignores that and forgets about that. That's what. So, but I thought that what we needed was practical solutions to the problem.
Yes.
Right. And so I would often hear things like pay yourself first. Pay yourself first. Live below your means.
Yes.
Start a budget.
Yes.
But what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
Right? And so I wanted to break it down to a level where someone could take something, follow some steps, and get to a solution.
Yes.
Right? Because exactly how do you pay yourself first? I did a course last year about savings, a sprinter savings course to teach people how to save.
Yes.
Because believe it, savings is a skill, right? And
saving is a skill. Say that again. Say that
saving
again.
is a skill. It's not something, it doesn't come naturally, right? It requires a skill.
Yes.
And I remember I invited a friend. She was an accountant and she didn't need the course. And in fact, she asked me why. I said, let's sign up. And if you don't like it or if it doesn't work, I'll give your money back. All right. And then so she signed up for the course. Like I said, she's an accountant. She's an accomplished accountant. And she's financially stable and everything. And she was surprised at what she actually learned in the course about saving because there are so many things that we are overlooking and bypassing when it comes to our saving. So what I'm trying to do is to find the practical solutions, the step-by-step solutions to help persons to get to what they need. Now, the other thing about this book, it takes you from wherever you are. It takes you through the three stages, what I call the three stages, which is in the book. The first step is that you have to build your financial foundation, right? And the foundation starts with the mindset, which we often ignore or overlook. The next foundational requirement is your financial habits. Are you saving consistently? It's like your hygiene. Do you brush your teeth every day? Do you save every day? Do you save every month, right? And that's a part of habit. Do you always overspend, right? And so these things have to come into play. And then do you have a financial plan that makes sense, right? And then do you have a budget? Oh, and by the way, lots of persons can't budget. They don't know how to do a budget. Because think about it. If you can't use Excel, then forget it, right? Unless you're going to write on paper, and then that's too hard. And budgeting in and of itself is really difficult, right? Because having done my own budget many years ago, it took me about 7 months to get it right. Because what happens, you do your budget and you forget about your auto insurance, for example, which comes due once a year, or then school fee comes up. Or if you're studying as well, then you have to pay your school fees as well.
Mhm.
Or if you're going on trips, you tend not to plan for it. It's only when vacation time comes you start to do
Yeah,
something.
yes, it's almost summertime. No,
Right.
yes,
Or Christmas comes
yes.
and you want to remodel your home or whatever, and that's the only time you think about it.
Mhm.
But when you have a proper spending plan, right?
Mhm.
What you do, you get everything in the spending plan so you can see where you're short or where you're over, and therefore you can start planning. And what it does, it highlights to you that you know where every cent is going and you know how it's going to be used. Now, the other thing about the budget
Mhm.
is your finances mean something because we think about the budget, but we don't think about the expense side of the budget. It's an equation. It's income and expenses. But most persons focus on the expenses. You can also focus on increasing your income.
Mhm.
So if your practical lifestyle is $3,500 and you're earning $2,000, then you should start searching religiously for a way to increase your income.
Mhm.
And that is also important, right? And so in fact, I'm thinking of doing, of course, about how to double your income because there are many ways we can do it these days. And you're not going to get it from your salary, obviously, right? But there are things that we can do. Now, there is also one additional element that is often overlooked and never spoken about: sacrifice. It doesn't happen automatically. So you have to have a proper spending plan. You have to know where your money is going. You have to have clarity. And then you're going to have to decide, what am I going to give up in order to get what I want? Because guess what? My view is that if you're earning anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 in Cayman and have two kids or less, I think you should be able to survive. It's a stretch, but you can survive. Because what we should say is that you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want. That's the difference.
Rent is already an issue.
Right.
You know, you go down that road and you realize that certainly your expenses can be so much.
Mhm.
And I had a colleague who had decided some years ago that it was so tough. She decided to sell her car and walk.
Oh boy. Okay. I've never recommended that because I call that's a mindset that says life is there's scarcity when there's abundance, because she perhaps should have pursued an income goal rather than a selling goal.
Well, that too.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. But I appreciate the fact that even at your level, you would qualify yourself more and learn more, take on short courses, and reveal to us that saving is indeed a skill. Because sometimes not sometimes, when the bills come, and you recognize you have to, savings is the last thing. So after you have paid everything, then maybe if something is left, maybe just, just maybe if a little bit is left. But I wanted to speak to the listeners joining us today on Sensational Sundays. I want to welcome you. You're tuned in live to a very special episode, and we are touching on finances, and that subject seems to impact every one of us. But alas, there is hope, but we have to be deliberate. And what sacrifice are you willing to make to accomplish your goal? We are already 3 months into the year, and believe me, this year is sprinting. But all hope is not lost, and certainly Mr. Linval Johnson, banker by profession, and of course now an author, is sharing with us some key tips and principles that we can implement. So we're going to go for a short break. Yes, we have to hear from our sponsors, and of course give you a chance to call your friends and relatives, and so that they can hop on here, subscribe, like, and share. I see a question here coming up from one of our viewers. How does someone with less money than needed save What is a realistic budget? Those are two questions that have been shared on our platform. But we are going to go for a short break,
Sensational,
and when we return, you will hear the answer to that question.
sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.
When you need ultrasound that's safe and effective, you must visit Asai Ultrasound Imaging. They're conveniently located at number 4 Chestnut Center, Smith Road, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. With experienced technologists with over 20 years experience, their friendly staff will make you comfortable while you get your procedure done. Asai Ultrasound Imaging is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Call Asai Ultrasound Imaging 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426. That's 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426.
Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.
If you're just joining us, welcome back. We are having a conversation about that thing that seems to be escaping our pockets. You know that it's just one of those things. And now we had two questions before we went off for the break, Linval, and of course our listener had asked a question: what's a realistic budget? And of course, what else was the question? Let's see what was question two. Uh, okay, we'll get back to that one. Yes.
All right, so I think another question related to how do you mind your finances if you're earning less?
Yes,
right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So, all right. So Warren Buffett says, who I think is one of the greatest financiers of our time,
Yes.
says you save first and you spend after. So we have it the wrong way around.
We totally have it the wrong way around.
Now, there is a what I call it. There is a formula for how you spend your money,
Yes.
right? That I think.
But it's a big secret, right?
No, it's no secret. Well, if you're untrained, it seems to be a secret,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
I presented it on. I presented some to a construction crew who almost threw stones at me. But anyway, but I'll tell you about it. So what happens is that there are a couple things that you should do. And the first thing is, starting at the foundational level,
Yes.
you should never spend more than 70% of what you earn. That's where you have to start. Right? Never spend more than 70% of what you earn.
Never spend more than 70% of what you earn.
Right?
Okay.
Good. So you have 30% there. Of the other 30%, you should save 10%.
So you're saying when I'm considering my salary, and if you should ask me no, what really belongs to me to spend is the 70%.
70% of your
So the 30% is
yes.
okay.
And 70% is when you're starting. As you progress up the ladder, it gets less. Okay? But anyway, you start at 70, right? The next 10%, you're going to save it.
Yes.
And that's where you can get your emergency fund and your savings and your save to investment.
Yes.
That's where you can do it. The third option is the third 10%. So 70, 10, 10 is to put that in a fund for to start to invest or to start your business. Your
Okay.
side, that's your second income, right? Start your
Yes.
second income,
Yes.
right? And the third 10% is for you to give away. Because you're always in a better shape. As bad as you are, you're better than somebody else, right? And so what we call that is the 70-10-10-10 formula, right? And if you can follow that formula, it will transform your life immediately. Now, the real transformation comes in that 10% that you use for investments.
Yes.
Because if you start putting away some funds, that 10%, let us say it's $100, 100, whatever it is, and it starts to accumulate, then you will have the funds to start your business. That's how you
So
get that.
how would you? All right. So I have it 30%, right? And I 10% is saving, 10% for investment, 10% for my
Yeah,
tithes.
separate tithes, whatever.
Yes, right. So if you decide that maybe you have that 20%, then that means your investment and your saving. Can we kind of shift all the things, because then I put it in my savings, I put in 20%, and then
No. Well,
how
well,
do you? What's the best way
sorry.
to allocate it so that it stays in where it's supposed to be
I shouldn't say
allocated?
no. The answer is never really no.
Yes.
Because it's your financial plan, you can do
Yes.
what works for you. But
Right.
what you're searching for is the optimal option,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now what we're getting is that what happens to is that 70-10-10-10, I'm sure a person out there is saying I'm crazy. That's the first thing. So let me acknowledge that.
Let's
But
see.
so it's something that you should aspire to as at the start of your financial journey.
Yes.
So if you can't do 70-10-10-10, do 90-5-3-2. Start somewhere, right? And try to improve by 1% each month or 1% here, something. But start. You have to start. Because if you don't start, you'll always be in the exact same position as
Yes.
you're in.
Yes.
Now, the 10% to saving and 10% to investment, they say you could put them together, which you probably could. But it depends on what you're really trying to accomplish. Why you want to keep the 10% investment separate? Because until you set yourself up that you can actually earn that second income, you will not transform your finances. It means that you're always going to be working and live a paycheck, right? And until you can find a way to generate additional income, as Warren Buffett says again, if you don't earn money while you sleep, you're going to work until you die, right? And if you want to be able to retire at 40 or 50 or even at 60, until you find a way and explore all the options for that second income, you are going to be stuck financially.
I'm stuck. That's such a profound statement, and many of us come to that realization far in the game,
Yes.
when we would have exhausted all our funds, perhaps our children, our investments. So, of course, that's the thought, that's the concept, right? So, we would have not been saving. Everything goes towards education and funding and home and stuff. And then, alas, you are at a state that you find yourself not sure what to do. Now, if you're listening, and I don't know what phase or stage you are in your journey of life, and we're having a conversation quite lightly, but certainly it's a profound conversation that we need to have with ourselves, right? We have to manage how we have the resources that we have. We have to determine, because if we don't do that, then we find ourselves in a situation where we are kind of tearing out our hair.
Yes, you're
Now,
at 65 with no savings.
yes.
And you're retired.
And when you find yourself living from paycheck to paycheck, I want to coin it in a way, but paycheck to paycheck, meaning that then somebody decides how much you're paid, when you're paid.
Right. Decide when you get salary increases.
If you're working hard enough to get an increase, and the list goes on.
Right.
And I'm sure you could help me with that list. But you find yourself totally dependent, and you want to reach a point where you have that freedom.
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about.
Absolutely. So that 70-10-10-10 is the foundation of all
Yes.
that, right? And so what's happening is that we have to stop and rethink where we are and to know where you want to get to. Because until you do that, you're going to end up exactly where you're headed. Now, you remember the always discussion we had earlier.
Yes. You only live once.
Yeah,
you only live once.
So you have to think about that. Now, if you have 3 kids,
Yes.
they're gonna and if you plan to send them to college, let me tell you my experience now, right? My son has a scholarship for $70,000. Like, yes, that's good. And then they send me my portion, $40,000 per year, right? That's my portion. For 88, I need $160,000 in the next 4 years for his for his college education, right? And he's on a scholarship, right? And not only that, I did the right things because I have insurance to cover it. No, the insurance is not $160,000. I can tell you that.
Yes.
Right? And so until you start to understand, you start to project for these things that are going to come, right? Then you are going to end up stuck, or your kid doesn't get to go to college and therefore doesn't get the best opportunities that they are or what have you, right? So you have to really slow down and stop and know exactly where you are going and where you get there. And so the financial clarity is key. And wherever you are now, you need to stop and start thinking about that. Where am I going to be in 6 months? Where am I going to be by the end of 2025? Where am I going to be in 5 years? Where am I going to be in 10 years? And these things are important. Now, earlier I said, no one is good or bad with money. It's that you're either trained or untrained. And so we do not prioritize financial literacy. We do not prioritize financial knowledge. And so the things that we should know, we don't know. And I'd go on to say that for you to actually get where you need to be financially, you're going to have to be way more deliberate. You're going to have to spend more time, because here's what you should be doing. You should be spending at least every week, half an hour every weekend on your budget. You should be spending another half an hour learning some financial skill. And until you start to expand these things, and so depending on where you are, you learn what is relevant for your time. So what I find is that lots of persons perhaps need to learn Excel so they can do a budget. Because I gave persons a budget, and when they came back to me, I was shocked with what I got. And I'm talking, let's put it in perspective, I'm talking professionals here. I'm not talking persons who are struggling, persons who are educated professionals can't do a budget, because they have never been taught how to do a budget. So it has nothing to, it's not that they're dumb or anything, they just don't know how to do it. And if you don't know, you don't know, right? So there needs to be a way to be able to get persons so they can train and understand how to do these things. Because once you get it, then you can move on to the next step, and you learn something and you keep on stacking that. And then you'll get better and better as you go along.
And you said where you're going to be in 6 months, a year, 5 years. But I want to bring it closer home. Where you're going to be tomorrow. If you're not paid yet this month, it's 25th coming up, and you can perhaps implement 1 or 2 changes. I mean,
Start thinking about it.
Start now. Let's rearrange how we think. We, as you said, savings should be what we think about first, but we typically say what is left. That's what we, because certainly we have bills to pay. We have electricity, we have, all the utility bills and of course, subscriptions. They're a big thing.
Oh boy, okay, all right.
Sometimes when the salary hits their You're wondering, did I subscribe? Your at least 5 or 6 and 7 items come out of your salary even before you can think about what you're going to be saving.
Well, as they say, pay yourself first, right?
Yes.
So the other thing is you have to think about, you can't be what I call a conduit for money. Everything can come in and just flow like a garden hose, right? You must find a way to retain that. So that 70-10-10-10 formula is how you're going to retain some, right? Because if you don't do that again, it's going to take you into borrowing. It's going to take you into, it's going to take you down on a downward spiral. And you really need to keep away from that.
Tell us about debt and bad debt.
Well, in the consumer world, 90% of debt out there is bad. Because good debt, by the financial definition, is debt. And if it doesn't generate income, it's bad debt. All right. Now let me just qualify that. We all need to live somewhere, and if you're going to get a mortgage, it does not generate income. Well, assuming it's a family home, it's not rented, it will not generate income, but it's an expense. So I would just call that an expense. It's really an expense at the time. It over the years it can become part of your generational wealth and so on, but it's really an expense. It's not really an asset from a financial management perspective. So if you're going to borrow, you're going to borrow to start a business. You're going to borrow to grow your business. You're going to borrow to do something. In fact, let me just backtrack. You said subscriptions are coming out of the account. Here's how I treat subscriptions. If it doesn't do something to generate income for me, I'm not going to sign up. So I don't have Netflix, right? If it doesn't generate income for me, I'm not going to do it, right? In fact, just to move on to something else. Now, your financial philosophy is what drives the way you live. Now, there are a couple, but I'll just go to 5. So you can be a frugalist. And a frugalist is someone who will always save something from their income. And frugalism is good, but it's not optimal, right? Because sometimes the frugalists will deprive themselves of things they should get just so they can save. And in the realm of personal finances, we do not teach scarcity. We want you to do what you want to do responsibly, right? So you have to learn how to do that. The other one is you'll have the capitalist. And this is the person who will pretty much put all their income to investments and savings, right? So it can generate more income, right? And then the third one is the frugal capitalist. And the frugal capitalist is where millionaires come from. Because it means that you are going to save quite a bit and you're going to invest quite a bit. And so therefore you're maximizing both ends of the scale, right? And that's really what we call the self-made millionaires come from. And then of course, you know what they have next? The spenders and the YOLOs. And these are people who are just going to spend. They're the garden hoses of this, and the money comes in and the money goes out, and that's it. So your own financial philosophy will drive you. Now we advocate for the frugal capitalist,
yes,
because it works. The capitalist also works, but it means usually what happens to the capitalists is that they may have 5 businesses, and what will happen is that they still don't have any money at the end. They can live their lifestyle because they have the income, but they're not building wealth sometimes.
I have to ask the question though, how do you learn? You mentioned there are some basic concepts that we don't know as individuals.
Right.
And I have a few questions in the chat. One is, how does someone without savings and reaching retirement in a short time navigate a better financial path? Is it even possible at this stage? And then someone says, work longer hours, right? There must be a personal target in saving and investment. So, how do you learn? Regardless of what stage you are in your financial journey. And right now, maybe you're taking an introspective look at yourself and realizing, I don't have much time to fix this. How can you at this stage, no knowledge of finances, and you want to have a better future, a better tomorrow? How do you navigate that?
Well, the first thing is to start now, right? That's the first thing. The younger you are, then the longer runway you'll have to build it. But if you're close to retirement at this point, then I would suggest that you start your saving, and maybe if you already own your home, I hope, then you can consider maybe renting one of the rooms because your kids may be moving out. In fact, my mother did that to me. The minute I moved out, she rented my room. Right? I was upset, but it was a smart choice. Right? So you can start thinking about renting a room in the house,
Yes.
or two, to cover the mortgage at this level or to
Yes.
cover your living expenses.
Yes.
So typically what happens is that what you will need as the closer you get to retirement is replacement income, right? So is it going to be from your investments? Is it going to be from rent? Is it going to be from a business that you're starting? The pension typically does not cover your living expenses at that point. Right, so that's one way to look at it. What was it, the question?
Well, I think someone would have answered by saying that this individual needs to work longer hours. He was asking, is it even possible if you're closer to retirement and you don't have all your ducks in a row, everything is
Right.
not, is it possible for you to experience some sort of prosperity? I like the word prosperity because that's the name of the book that is authored by Linval O. And I will share with you later how you can have the ability to dive more into this information. We are just touching on a few areas today, but certainly you'll be able to access all that you need from this book. And that this is just the first book. I'm sure there are others to come after this one. This one, Paychecks to Prosperity.
And prosperity is a word from the Bible, by the way.
Yes, I wish
so-
above all things that you prosper
Right,
and be in good health.
right.
Yes, a lot of persons in the Christian realm, we like to use this passage, the love of money is the root. No, we don't say the love. Money is the root of all evil. And but of course, certainly we recognize that God would have given them wisdom to spend the resources. And we have also said that a cattle on 1,000 hills belong to our Creator, and we can get even one sheep. That would be good, right?
Well, as you know, that's one of the misconceptions or myths about money. And like you did correct yourself, the actual saying is the love
No
of
money.
is the love
Yes,
of all evil.
yes.
But the prosperity, Abraham was a very prosperous man.
Yes.
Solomon was very prosperous. David didn't do too bad either,
Yes.
right? So prosperity in and of itself
Yes.
is not a bad thing,
Mhm.
right? Because the more you prosper is the more you can actually give
Mhm.
and support your family and support the extended family and support your community. So one should always strive for prosperity. And we don't we shouldn't be limiting ourselves to how much we can earn or so on. We don't, when a child is born, we don't say they should just stay in their crib, right? We try to get them out.
Progress. Yes. Yes.
So we should progress every area of our life in that same fashion.
Yes.
Because if you're not learning, because there are three things you can do. You can either get better, you can either or maintain pace. And to maintain pace, you have to do something, by the way. Because if you're not maintaining pace, it means that you're retrogressing and you're falling behind, right? And so if you're not focusing on your finances, how I can improve it, how I can save, how I can be better, how I can add more clarity, then you're going to keep falling behind month after month as you borrow more, the debts get bigger, the loan payment gets higher, and
ever revolving
you're always
cycle.
behind.
Yes.
behind,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
So you have to find ways to get ahead.
Right. So you mentioned second source of income, and one of our listeners, our attention was piqued by that idea of, certainly accessing more funds. But say you work long hours, and how what are the options out there for someone to earn an additional income?
All right. So there are many options out there. So what you find is that persons, we need to get life balance. And typically we work 8 hours per day. If you work, or even if you work 10 hours per day, what you find is that you may have to give up your Netflix time or that time you spend or the scrolling time or the social media. You might have to give up time to do something more productive with it, right? You may need to learn a new skill
Mm-hmm.
to get the additional income. You may need to do a garage sale. And the garage sale works it out. Put a few things in the kitchen and you'll be surprised they go quickly, right? Um, but you have to give yourself options. Now, remember, Jeff Bezos, which is Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft started in a garage,
Mm-hmm.
right? And these were all started as an after school or after work
Mm-hmm.
item.
Right.
In fact, we don't have to go that far. Foster's and Kirk's here, I think Kirk started at the back of his car. The early years, right? And Foster's probably had a little shop somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And we see what they have today. So you have to start somewhere and start building and give yourself an opportunity. Now, there's a young man at John Gray High School. I did a talk there recently. And his mother said, I need you to meet my son because I think he's special. And he is indeed special. This little fellow goes to the supermarket with his mother every weekend and gets snacks and takes it to school and sells it, right? Nobody told him to do this. No, he has an account with just over $5,000 from snacks, right? And this is over a little bit of time, which is fine.
No, he's showing up the adults.
Yes. And then when I was talking to him, the question he asked me is, what do I need to do? How do I go about getting a vending machine? Right? And so that is how you have to actually start from zero. Sell pens in your office. If you're good at something, maybe start a webinar about it. If you can teach, you can start teaching. If you're good at tennis, you do tennis programs. If you're good at music, you teach music. If you're good at speaking, teach people how to speak. If you're good at writing, lots of persons in universities, and this is what I get every day, can you help me to present for my master's thesis,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when these things come, you can assist, you can offer that as a package and as a part of your additional income. So find something that you can actually do. You have to really think about it because everybody's good at something, right? Can you fix phones, right? And stop giving away your skills. That's the other thing. And when I say stop giving away, I don't mean you're going to be mean about it. But persons are going to come to you and ask you for favors and ask you for this. And if it keeps happening over time, then you start to say, hey, perhaps I'm onto something here. Think about it, right? What can I do with this? And then sometimes there are companies or entities who will take your services as well and pay you for these services because you might do something for your staff that they want to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And it works. So my next book, which is about 90% complete, is about goal setting, right? Because I find that persons we don't know how to set goals. We think we know, but we actually don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are so many layers that we skip over, and then we wonder why we don't meet in the goals. So this book will teach you how to even set your New Year's resolutions and don't abandon them by February, right? How to go through the entire cycle until you get where you need to get to. Because again, it comes down to what you know and how prepared are you to do what you want to do. Because chances are where you are today and what you know today will not take you where you need to get to. Because that's a part of the challenge. We have to upgrade our skills, we have to upgrade our knowledge, we have to upgrade ourselves. So there's a young man that I'm coaching now, and in his budget, he has a personal development element in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's doing a master's, and he has to do some certifications. And I say, put it in your budget, right? Because your budget must match your objectives. And so he's doing that. And in the budget, he also has what I call professional image. So he needs to dress properly. He needs to buy clothes regularly. So put it in the budget. Make it a part of your budget. And so you can do it. So you don't have to buy every month, but you can buy once every 6 months, and you can buy proper stuff and things like that. So once you start to budget the right way, a budget is not just some numbers on paper. It has way bigger implications. And so when you look at your budget, for example, the questions you should ask yourself is, how much of my income is going to generate more income for me? Am I just spending everything that I'm earning? Because if you're just spending everything that you're earning, then you need to switch somehow. And it starts with really assessing where you are and thinking about what sacrifice am I willing to make to make this transition.
There you have it. It's a very enlightening conversation we're having today on Sensational Sunday. We're talking about saving. Saving money. And of course, that 70-30 principle. It sounds like it can work, right?
It can work.
It sounds like it
you
can
may need
work.
some training on it, but
You
it
may
can work.
need
Yes.
some training. So talk to us about how we can access this book. I have just had a chance to go through the
intros and the
intro,
table of contents.
a table of contents, a journey to financial mastery, navigating this book, lay the foundation for freedom, build a strong financial fortress, fortify your finances, establish a formidable defense against downfall. And we talk about that safety net. Yes. Prosperity and abundance, launch offensive strategies for success. These are steps, 1, 2, 3 steps, and of course, 3-step process. Of course, that doesn't sound like it's hard, just 3 steps, but I bet it takes some sacrifice and certainly. And of course, at the front of the book, there's a money tree and there's water.
But
poured on this tree.
The money tree is that you have to water that tree. That means you have to do something. It doesn't just grow by itself.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you have to make there. It requires input and effort on your part. It's not, as they say, faith without works is dead.
Yes.
Goals without effort is dead. You have to do something as well. That's a part of the whole cycle of what you need to do.
All right, so want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Sensational Sunday. We are going to take another break and we'll be back. We are going to feature a song by the man Audley Scott, one of our very good listeners here at Flashpoint, and also he is one who is sharing his music. Is I think he does piano lessons as well.
Here you
but
go.
of course he is a singer, a musician, a producer, all in one package, and of course a supporter of Flashpoint. Of course, this is one from his latest album, and I'm sure you'll be blessed as you listen to this song.
Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.
Lord God most high, He's our guide. Lord God most high, to you belong the honor, the glory, and praise. And praise, I will exalt your name through all of my days. My days. There's no other God in heaven and earth so wonderful. me the flower and birds to testify. Flowers and the birds gonna testify. In him we live, we move and have our lives. There's no other God, there's no other God in heaven and earth so wonderful. No other name, there's no other name, a moment by which we must be saved. Tell me who made the sea. Tell me who lied to me. He's our God. He's our God. Yes, he is our friend. He's our friend. In his love, in his love, there is no end. There's no other God. There's no other God in heaven and earth so wonderful. No other name. There's no other name, a moment by which we must be saved. Tell me who made the sea. Tell me who lied to me. Tell me who made the sea. Tell me who lied to me. Jesus, he woke me up this morning, gave me a brand new word to say. He's my rock of ages, the rock of ages. Yes, he planted my feet to say.
When you need ultrasound that's safe and effective, you must visit Asai Ultrasound Imaging. They're conveniently located at number 4, Chestnut Center, Smith Road, Georgetown, Cayman Islands. With experienced technologists with over 20 years experience, their friendly staff will make you comfortable while you get your procedure done. Asai Ultrasound Imaging is open Mondays to Fridays, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturdays. Call Asai Ultrasound Imaging 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426. That's 345-949-2454 or 345-938-3426.
Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.
Welcome back, welcome back. I say welcome to those tuned in on Flashpoint TV YouTube channel and those on Flashpoint Media and those listening via the radio, internet radio at www.flashpointmedia.ky. Indeed, this conversation has certainly been an insightful one, and I have already taken some pearls of wisdom which I will certainly apply to my life. I'm sure the listeners too have also benefited from you sharing your journey and also what you have learned along the way. And so, of course, you can also grab a copy of this book, Paychecks to Prosperity, author Linval O. Johnson, who is coming from a point of a banker and the experiences that will benefit each and every individual. So share with us, how can we access these resources and make better financial decisions?
Okay, so I have a community, Reimagine Finances, where what I'll do, I'll send it to you so you can put it in the show notes so they can actually join. It's a free community. and you can ask your questions there. We have webinars regularly and so on. So this year I did a setting financial goals. In fact, this Thursday, I'm going to be doing the financial habits that keep you poor this week. So we're going to go through that and the solutions, of course. So I'm putting that together. And so once you're in the community, you can ask questions. I'm always posting stuff a couple times a week and so on. So it gives you an opportunity. And when there are courses that are coming up, so what I'll do, I'll listen around to see what's needed and then try to offer something that actually fits the course. I have a saving to investing course coming up soon. I have a savings course, and I also have a master class based on the book. Right? So it will take you through the full journey from where you are. So we're looking at those things and we'll get those launched.
I know most times when you're starting a course, there are some prerequisites. So suppose you're really 101, zero basics in that, or over your head, no financial clue. How do you take us? Any way, any shape, form, we come?
All right, here's what we say.
Yes,
We'll use what you have.
yes,
We'll meet you where you are, and we'll
yes,
take you where you want to go.
yes.
Right? I've seen it all. Well, I think I've seen it all. I'm pretty sure I've seen most of it. Right? I've seen a lot. And so, for the only prerequisite is that you must have an income. Because if you don't have an income, then I can't help you, right? And then we can start looking at how to optimize your position based on your income.
Okay.
Right? So the courses are very specific. I break them down to the need of the cohorts and so on. So everybody walks away with something that these are practical courses. They're not theoretical courses, right?
Yes,
They're all
yes.
practical courses to take you from point A, step by step, to take you from point A to point B.
Awesome. And you mentioned regarding mentorship that you do mentorship in. Is that something that you offer only to schools?
Um,
School?
at the moment, I'm doing that at UCCI. So the programs are, I'm thinking of introducing also a financial mastery program
Mm-hmm.
to put it on the curriculum of the school. So we're working on that now. So looking at, I think, and John Gray is also interested in that. So we're looking at putting that on the curriculum as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful.
In terms of the mentorship program for adults, what we can do, we can create what I call a mastermind program
Mm-hmm.
where so like-minded persons can come into a group and then we can start doing things that helps everybody along the way. Right? So Reimagine Finances, for example, what we say is that everybody in Reimagine Finances we will teach you how to have at least 10,000 in savings just sitting there. It's not your emergency fund, and that's just the foundation. That's it. We want to teach everybody how to do that.
Speak about the currency when you say 10,000.
10,000 US or CI.
10,000 CI.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you have it. We have certainly gained a wealth of knowledge from the conversation we have had here. I want to thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Sensational Sundays. The link will be posted in the description so that you'll be able to access this book.
And access
Because
the community as well.
it's also available online.
On Amazon as well, yes.
It's on Amazon. So there you have it. Stop dreaming and start doing, from paycheck to prosperity. We will show you how reimagine your finances. Imagine that you're in a prosperous place, and we have to be determined. We have to decide what sacrifices you will make, and certainly it will work out eventually. And it doesn't matter where you find yourself now. I know there are persons who have gotten depressed
Yes.
when they recognize. So, we don't take this conversation lightly, because we recognize that when you wake up tomorrow morning and recognize that you already spent
Right.
your paycheck and you have all of the month ahead of you, and you're in a situation in this cycle that seems to be not getting better.
Never ending
We
cycle,
want
right?
to provide some hope. We want to rescue, not dig you, just pull you out of that hole so that you can stand firm and be determined so that you don't have to live from paycheck to paycheck,
So
but
find
you
ways to help you to break that cycle.
break that cycle. So I want to thank you so much for joining us on Sensational Sunday. We have had such a wonderful discussion. So I want you to speak to a listener. Just speak to a listener. If you have not yet shared the link, go ahead and share the link. Somebody could benefit from this information.
Okay.
So share with our listeners what they need to know today.
All right. So in terms of what you need to know today is that the if you don't have it already, the first place you need to start is give yourself some kind of safety net, and that's an emergency fund. In fact, here's what you can do. This is your takeaway for today. If you do not have an emergency fund, start to build an emergency fund of just $1,000, 1,000 CI, right? For those in the Cayman Islands, and find an equivalent amount if you're in a different country, right? So 1,000 CI, and I don't care how you do it. Sell your old sneakers if you have to. Do a garage sale. Do whatever you need to do. Start working some extra hours. Just build that up.
Yes.
Because what you're going to find that $1,000 will remove most of your stress, right? And then when you get there, then you start pushing to get to 3 months and then 6 months. And then you're in the game, and then you can truly start to build from that platform.
There you have it. There is hope. One day at a time. Start now. That is the message we have. I want to say thank you so much, listeners, viewers, for joining us on this episode of Sensational Sundays. I will check before we get out of studio to see if there are any more questions for Mr. Linval as he gets out of here, but certainly we have enjoyed the program. We have benefited from the information that you have shared, and I want to encourage you to continue to share. I like your passion, like the fact that you are also teaching young people, because we don't want to have any surprises in adulthood. You start the first day and you're in debt and you're in this cycle until you retire. And so it is important that you teach this skill
Yes.
so that we can be healthier, happier persons. So I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of Sensational Sunday. Next week we have something special for you. Of course, we're going to give you a sneak peek at what is happening at the Manor Foundation. That is a community-based effort by the Ebenezer Seventh-day Adventist Church. And of course, we had the privilege to be there at their groundbreaking, and we'll share that episode with you next week. So you have to stick and stay, and of course join us for Sensational Sundays every Sunday at 3 p.m. and all through the week. You can of course share the link. So thank you, and see you same time, same place. Stay sensational. I'm your girl Elise, saying peace and love to you.
Sensational Sundays with your girl Elise on Flashpoint Radio. Come, let's talk, let's hang, let's just jam on Sunday, 3 p.m. Flashpoint Radio.